It's August the 13th, 2019. This is 508, a show about Worcester. I am Mike Benedetti. This is Brendan Melican. How are you doing?
Good, brother. How are you?
I'm doing good. And this is today's guest, Worcester School Committee Challenger, Jermoh Kamara. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing good. It's great to have you on the show. This is our last or next to last in our series of school committee challenger interviews. So it's exciting to get to this point. I'm going to ask you the questions that we ask everybody. Why are you running, and how have you been active in public life in Worcester up until now?
So, the story is that I'm running because I believe in doing whatever it takes to ensure that our kids get quality education here in the city, and I'm running because I'll do whatever it takes to ensure that it's done. And just then, from my own story, I came here when I was 11 years old from Liberia as an immigrant. I don't like using that word, but I'll use that.
It's accurate though.
Yeah, it's accurate. Yes, I don't know. The sound of it just doesn't sound so good in my ears. I don't know why, but
okay, keep going.
Yeah, but I came here and I was in the public school educated started at Canterbury School, Sullivan Middle, South High. So and when I was in school, it wasn't all that breezy. It was difficulties. I had experienced some difficulties in my education. Like, for example, I was told I didn't belong in the program. When I tried to advance myself by taking AP courses, I sat in a class a whole year and the teacher never called on me. And there was 3 African-American kids in the classroom in high school. But fortunately, I did not let that stop me. I saw, a lot of, when I was at South High and in high school, there was so many things going on, like kids who were doing drugs, some of my peers, were getting pregnant, and I just didn't want to be a statistic. So I applied myself and I graduated, top of my class. I was the vice president of my class, and I got a tuition scholarship to attend Providence College. And I have a degree in public health. So I actually see health as a means of quality education in the social determinants of health. Wherever you live, learn, work, play, all impacts your health. And quality education is a main component. In my story, I feel like one way or the other, my story resonates with most students in the public schools who come from either low income background or a single home family, or just trying to be something and wanting to be something but not knowing how to do that. So I want to be the voice of our kids in the public schools, so that's why I'm running.
Wow. Let me ask you the school funding question, which is that Worcester is owed in excess of like $100 million by the state of Massachusetts. What would you like to see us do to try to get this money back, or what kind of offer from the state would satisfy you that we don't need to keep suing them?
So I think that we need more school committee members advocating. We need to join other organizations advocating for the money to be released to the schools. I know that the Promise Act is one method of us gaining more money to come into our public schools that will allow us to also use the funds in a way that the schools can use them for the benefit of students. So I definitely think that I know the city is pursuing a lawsuit at the state level for the funding, and I think that this year it's very important that all members on the school committee or individuals on the school committee, teachers, all rallied together to advocate for the funds to be given to our public schools, because once that is released, is going to do a whole lot of great things in our city here, including helping to find equitable solutions for the homeless youth in our schools, which is just a statistics that is just really it's disturbing, to say the least.
Brendan Melican.
No, keep moving.
Counterpoint. You don't have
no counterpoint.
Okay.
Not that kind of show.
I just always like to harass Brendan by this. Brendan, tell me why homeless students are a good thing, please. Okay. What's important for people to know about the academic outcomes of our schools? And this is a question that I ask people, and they interpret it different ways. I think it was originally intended to mean like what kinds of information should parents know about the different schools so they could make good decisions, or I don't know, that kind of thing. But that's the question. What's important for people to know about the academic outcomes of our schools?
So, to answer that question, I will answer in two ways. One, from the view of the student, and then the other from the view of the parents. So from the view of the students, the academic outcome, students should know about their academic outcomes, because in the society, students need to have certain key skills. Students need to have certain skills that can allow them to pursue futures that they want to pursue, whether if they want to go to college onward, or they just want to go into the workforce, or even vocational school. I think they need to understand that these options are there or available, and more than that too, there needs to be a method in which that students can be on a track. If I don't want to go to college, but if I want to just enter the workforce, we need to start identifying, students in these pockets, so that we are better able to help them.
Yeah.
Because according to the statistics, only 37% of the population here that graduate from the public schools have post-secondary degree.
Yeah.
But yet still, the jobs, the job market in the next 4 years, 2024, or more than that, is going to be in technology, healthcare, all of these, fields that not only require a post-secondary degree or higher degree. It requires, for example, the tech world.
Yeah.
Requires, solid skills. And I truly believe that we need to find a curriculum that can really help students find who they are. On the view of the parent needs to know, like, the processes that their kids are going to be, that they need to be involved with in the school in regards to how their kids are being treated and educated. And they also need to know ahead of time, especially in the concentration of population of parents that come from low income background, or just struggling to make ends meet, and some who also they are working class parents and they don't have the time to come into schools all the time. I think we need to start devising programs to start catching kids as early as elementary school, and catching parents, knowing that, educating our parents, these are the formalities, these are the ways in which that you can get involved, and these are the ways in which that, based on a plan for your kids, these are the ways that your child can succeed. And we need to start identifying programs, leveraging universities in Worcester. There's so many universities, I think more than 10 or 11 universities here in the city. There's also social service agencies that can also come to the table and help parents, better, understand the education system, because some parents don't even know.
Did your folks know about all the ins and the outs and all the options that were available to you when you were in school?
No, so I had to find all of that on my own.
Yeah.
Nobody held my hand. I had to do all of that by myself. And my parents were they're shocked, and they said, "Oh my, So in my culture, parents don't tend to kind of like praise you, because they believe that when they do that, the child might,
it's gonna make you weak.
Yeah, something like that. So my father, he was so headstrong with my education. And only very recently he started to tell me, good job, or, you're
now that you're done.
Yeah, exactly. My mother didn't know. My father, even though he worked in the public schools as a substitute teacher for a little bit, but he also saw the struggles there. But he didn't know holistically how to get me out of that.
Yeah. I mean, I think about this, that my parents knew. But both of my parents had at least some college, so they knew how that system worked, and they knew how it went to go from high school into that system. But when I look back on what the schools did for me as far as that went, if my parents had not sort of pushed me in that direction a little bit, and my teachers not pushed me in that direction a little bit, this administration of the schools and anything else in the school was definitely not set up to track me one way or the other. It was just kind of good luck, bro. It wasn't interested in being you know what, you might want to be a mechanic or you might want to be a physicist. It was just maybe you can just figure it out, which is like kind of a cool, edgy DIY thing.
Yeah.
But maybe for a lot of students, it's not the healthiest for them. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I was curious because you mentioned obviously you have a strong focus on preparing students for higher education after public schools. What about the other aspects of education, though, like the arts, and along with that, just the idea that maybe college isn't for anyone? So it's like,
Is it for anyone or everyone?
everyone. Did I say anyone?
You said anyone.
Anyone?
This
I
is Peter
meant
Thiel
everyone.
here to
no,
my
'cause
right.
I like use myself as in both my parents were college. Both my parents were educators, and they're college. But I never finished college, and it's I still to this day in my 40s. I don't know if I actually regret that decision because things have kind of turned out okay.
Beautiful.
But at the same time, I don't know what else may have come up had I decided to actually apply myself to something. Yeah. But I think I'm kind of at the point where I at least have to acknowledge that for me, college was not for me, right? Like we can do that now.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. But I do feel that sometimes when we get into conversations about outcomes, that it's always college focused as opposed to figuring out how we're going to make young people happy.
Yeah. No, but I did say I didn't only say higher education. I did say any other like vocational school.
Sure.
But so I do like for one of my platform, for example, talks about create bringing and supporting K to 12 science, technology, engineering, arts, and math programs. And I'm huge on that because I also was a not STEM but STEAM teacher, and when. And this was for students, low income students.
What did you teach?
STEM. So I
the whole thing.
Yeah. So like what I did is I broke it down into sections, and because I have a science background and I love technology I have a nonprofit where I do bring in education technology. So I love technology and I understand how technology can be used, for so many things to educate kids, to even provide doctors in the most remote parts of the world. So I really. I love that part of it. And I also know that some kids are so talented, they can draw and they can do all this stuff. So how can we channel all of their skills, whatever skills that they have, to mean quality skills for the workforce? And I think that's something that sadly that the education system, like the high schools, like when kids graduate from high schools, that's unfortunately something that they don't get. They don't, they have not nurtured. And so everyone is like powering through, wanting to go to college without, skills or knowing thyself, knowing who they are. And then when they go to college, it's like a different ball game because if you don't already have some prerequisites, like, studying X, Y, and Z, if you cannot make it, then, or if it's not just your interest, for example, because you're still searching for yourself, then that's a question mark. So I definitely think that there's a lot of opportunities nowadays, for kids to go into various areas. For example, if I had known that I could go to the Peace Corps or that I could do AmeriCorps right after high school, I would have done that, and that would have helped me long term and help the country and help, whatever, wherever I'll be stationed doing AmeriCorps, or even, going to, because 18, you can go to the Army, you can do the various things. And if you have the skills and the expertise, you can even, and in tech, you can even be start doing something in that too. If kids know how to code and they can do so many things, so I think now that Worcester is opening, there's a lot of organizations and businesses opening with the arts. And with the STEAM-based, ideologies, I think we can definitely leverage. For example, Technocopia, they're doing some fantastic things. There's just to name a few of organizations. Becker College, for example, they have summer programs because they're known for gaming. They're like the first in the world, I believe. They have programs for high school kids and even for middle school kids. WPI robotics, they do a lot of things in the community, even Clark University.
Yes.
So I mean, if we can identify all of these avenues and find kids who are interested, and like I went to a medical college, but I have a public health background, and at the university, the university partnered with high schools where they brought students into the university who were interested in various med programs, and they had med students supporting them. We need more of that. I was a part of a UMass program in high school that brought me to UMass, but it was just a selected few. So I think we need to open up for more students and more kids who have the aspirations to be whatever they want to be. And not just giving it to a particular hand group of chosen kids to be a part of that. And I think we need to give kids access to information, parents access to information, and telling them this is X, Y, and Z. You can do X, Y, and Z to achieve your end goal. If you want to do mechanic, Worcester Tech. So I mean, we just need to give parents access to information. And one thing that I see at all these places that I don't see in the public schools, and even recently, because I just went to register my niece to join to start East Middle this year, I asked if there's an orientation. When I was in school, I didn't do no orientation. When I for example, to enter Sullivan Middle, my parents didn't do no orientation. When I entered high school, a few students were taken to South High, because I remember that, but there was not an orientation for parents and students. So I think that we need to start integrating certain things, even if it's small scale, and see how that's going to go. And go from there.
What do parents need to know about discipline in our schools?
What do they need to know?
Yeah.
They need to be involved, because from the view of the parent, how they believe their child is a different thing from how the kid, whatever discipline, whatever issue that happens in the school. So I definitely think that if we get more parents involved into participating in schools, and I know there's background checks where parents have to be certified, Corey check to come into the schools. I think if parents who want to be engaged, I think they should go through the necessary process. But the schools, the school committee, I think needs to provide a mechanism in which parents can be engaged. And I think that once we have that engagement, I believe that some of the situation that we see here, such as early as third grade, kids are being already suspended, or kids are struggling, and making the numbers even to be higher, for the school to prison pipeline. So I think that we definitely need to find other mechanisms and not just suspension. I know that according to the data too, suspensions have gone down, but I want to know what are we doing to bring them down, and can we keep doing that? And also, can we also draw out the other mechanisms, like for example, yoga, other things that other schools are doing or other places are doing that are decreasing.
Is yoga just as part of calming kids down and helping kids get their head together?
If there's, because the thing here is that most of the kids, according to the data, are behavioral issues are stemming or seems to be the root of for the problem, and also injustice and racism in the public schools. That according to the data that and not only the data, but students experience, because I too experience it. I cannot. Okay. I cannot shy away from that to say that I didn't feel discriminated, and no one discriminates against. I'm not, my words right now is
nobody. Also, nobody discriminated against you.
Yeah, discriminated against me. I was like, what? Yeah, so I definitely feel that that it's there, and I think we need to have open and listening ears and ears of compassion, and find ways to see how we can fix the system rather than. Saying it's not there, because I experienced it. Fortunately for me, the skill set that I have allowed me to see past it, but it's there, and the numbers show that it's there, and we had to listen as leaders. On the school committee, we have to listen, and even teachers have to listen to students, and we have to listen to teachers as well. Because they're also going through a lot in the schools. It's not easy to teach, because I I know that for sure. It's not easy to teach. The kids come to the classroom with so many baggage, and they're excited, but still there's so many issues that they're dealing with that is not even based on what is going on or what the teacher have done to them. But so we have to really recognize and have compassion, because when I was a STEAM teacher, and when I worked with kids, whether at Friendly House or when I was
so rewind and maybe I wasn't paying attention. I was looking too many of these bells and whistles on this board here. Tell me about your experience teaching.
So I was a STEAM educator. Okay. And this was with the White Plains Youth Bureau. So the past 2 years when I was getting my master's.
This is in New York State?
Yeah, Westchester County, New York. And it was an after school program, and the youth bureau, I think similar to what we have here, and it was a cohort program. So every quarter we'll have a new batch of kids, and I put together my own curriculum, bringing in students from my institution, and also with
How old were the kids?
So this the fifth and sixth graders.
Okay.
Yeah. So fifth and sixth graders, and it was a lovely population. I love working with them. It was incredible because you learn from them as you are teaching them, and they learn from you too. It was really interesting to see also that like the sixth graders, because there is a little bit different from here, because here we have middle school is 7th and 8th, but there they had like just 7th grade, and then the 8th to 12 was like a high school. So like some of them were going into.
Wait, Dave, high school. Brandon Milliken's nodding. Said they've high school from 8th to 12.
Yeah, a lot of places. do.
5 years. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm
We dice
outraged.
our schools up in an interesting way that is really common in cities, but especially if you get into towns, you'll often find that like elementary schools will be broken up from like kindergarten to 2nd grade, and then it'll be like 3rd grade through 5th grade or 6th grade, and then sometimes you'll have middle school will be like 6 through 8 or just 6 and 7.
Seventh.
A lot of it's districts try and judge what's best in terms of lumping kids together by age, and it's the idea being that. Even you see this in our middle schools around here. In many cases, a 7th grader is just so wildly immature, even relative to an 8th grader, that you've got like these two populations within one building.
So you got to keep keep them separated.
I don't know. You're going to keep them separated, but the idea being that there might be better ways to group them, and it's sometimes easier to do in smaller districts.
Okay. Anyway, sorry to get onto a totally separate subject there. Please continue.
Yeah, and so it was amazing. And then at the end of the program, the kids had to do a project based. So whatever project we had learned in the classroom, the teacher worked with the kids to do like a end of the year display. There's a term for it, science project.
Sure.
And it was amazing because like the city put that together, the youth bureau put that together. They invited parents and the students, display what they learned, and then they got a prize at the end of it. But it was a wonderful experience. It was also wonderful to know that. Those students that I was teaching as they were going into 7th grade, they had an AVID program at the middle school. So because I was an AVID,
AVID like
so it's advanced via individual determination. It's a program from elementary school all the way to high school, but in some areas they start in middle school, some areas they start in high school. So in Worcester we have that here from the middle school.
Okay.
I mean from the elementary school. Yeah.
And what is the? I don't even know if we need to get into all the weeds on this.
It's an awesome program that helps kids build, scores, academic scores, and also help them prepare for college or even like professional development and all that.
I don't know anything about school, as you can
okay.
probably tell. I want to say, Brendan, a lot of people have complained that this education policy stuff is very dry.
It's wicked policy. It's wicked dry.
There's at least one part that's very sexy, though.
What's that?
Sex education. Maybe not very sexy. What do you think of sex education, Jermoh?
So, as a public health practititioner, we needed, according to the data in the city, we needed the high teen pregnancy, rising STI, STD rates. Among others, we need it.
What should it look like in Worcester? And as a public health professional, you could give us you could actually
might be the first person qualified
helpful
on the show to actually discuss.
Yes,
yeah.
like what kinds of stuff should be in it, and what kinds of stuff do you think is not really appropriate?
So and that's based on the data as well, and what the data is showing and proving.
Yes.
So in order to curtail some of like teen pregnancy, there's so many like dimensions with that. So like starting from like the middle school level, if we want to start sex ed from the middle school, it has to be age appropriate, and it has to also target some of the things that we're seeing in the data, because after a year or two, you want to monitor that program to see if it's actually decreasing, because nowadays in our middle school we have daycares. So we wanted to reduce that. We want to also look at relationship issues, because in middle school that's when all of that is stemming, right? Relationship issues and social issues, communication issues.
This would be like consent and stuff like that.
Consent and all that. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And then in the high school, it's again age appropriate. So in the high school, that kids are more, they're involved in sex. I mean, this is not if they're having babies in the middle school. Hey, what are they doing in high school? It's the same. It's so the data is proven that it's showing. So we definitely need programs that are going to expose kids to to curtail the data and to help us provide that mechanism for kids to be in better relationships or understand their rights, understand where they can get services from, and understanding how health and their health is very important, and how they can also build social skills and communication skills, consent, all that stuff.
I've got a question for you based on your education background. So I feel like one of the big, whether it is genuine or it was just used as sort of a red herring with the folks who were opposed to sex ed last year in the city. It kind of drilled down to we need to be extremely respectful of people's cultural and religious beliefs. But the one thing that I don't think ever really came up, and you're a perfect example of this, I think, you have an education background in public health. Did your view on sex ed change through your exposure to public health as a curriculum, like as a field of study? Like, do you have the same views on sex education in the public schools that if I asked 17-year-old you, would you have the same views that you had today? Because, I mean, I feel like that's one of the things that's actually, it's easy to say, well, we need to be respectful of religion and culture. But in a weird way, what we're saying is, well, we don't want that person to have to change their mind. And I feel like that's part of the problem in Worcester, is that we haven't had genuine conversations based on, you keep saying statistics and data. That's all that matters, right? Like we're talking about reality. And it's like, we're almost trying to ignore an objective reality in Worcester by taking a safe route. And instead of saying, hey, like there might be some stuff that is real that we're uncomfortable discussing, so we're going to put it on the back of religion or culture or whatnot. Reality is we just need better, from my perspective, we just need better education. And well, you're the only person in the room who's educated on that front.
Yeah. And there are a lot of curriculums, evidence-based curriculums out there,
sure.
That can be looked into. I also think with the State Department, the Health Department coming up with their own kind of guidelines would be a great way to move forward because that system should have already been put in place.
Yeah.
And then like this public schools working with the public health department here can devise strategies to work with the school committee to engage, families who have, who have concerns. And there is also a thing in public health where if you don't want a service, you can opt out of it.
Sure.
So definitely, explaining, just explaining the strategies and explaining the process that parents can, that parents are entitled to and kids are entitled to. But again, I think that we should not forget about the data because at the end of the day, if you put a program together for a set population, and if we're talking about evidence-based, right, if it's a set population and we're giving a service to a group of kids, at the end of the day, the outcome is that we want to change X, Y, and Z. And after years or 6 months evaluation or however, because the curriculum will have their own ways of evaluating the program. So if there's a method of evaluation, if we're evaluating these programs and seeing that nothing is happening, then we might want to change stuff or maybe do our own research and use our own population here in Worcester and devise our own curriculum that would fit what we want. And again, you would need expertise on that. So you would need the health department, you would need this, the guidelines, you would need people who are in, even universities and professors who are invested in research and all of this stuff. And you would need public health experts like myself on, on the table to ensure that process. And it's very interesting segue because I'm working on a research with a professor friend of mine from the University of South Florida on a sexual health program for populations in Liberia because we did some research last year and that we found that even in the country there's not a evidence-based comprehensive curriculum and in Liberia also had the data is even advanced with the number of students that are either being pregnant or HIV rates or and also that stems from all of the socioeconomic factors in the country and economic factors as well. So we are doing a research study with this lady and my friend, and then also with other health departments and leaders in the country too. So this is really interesting to see that Worcester is also on that same platform in terms of just finding what is relevant or what can be relevant for our schools and our students.
Brady Milligan.
No, that's fine.
Right. Tell us about one of your favorite teachers.
Oh wow!
If you need a minute to think about it, I can talk about commodities news. But if you got one, tell us.
So this is a very interesting and special person. There's a couple of them, but I think he stands out the most to me. Can I say a name? Or
Of course.
You should. Yes.
So Mr.
Yes.
D, and that was my biology teacher in high school, and he was just very understanding.
Okay.
And he's someone who, when he sees that a student is trying, he encourages students. He's very passionate about teaching, and a lot of the science programs that I was put into, I did not know that it was that was his doing, and he saw something in me, and he said, I didn't know this until I actually graduated.
Oh, that he was like, we're put you on a certain science track.
Yeah, and I came back and I was like, Mr. D, did you do? And he was, we had a conversation, and then he was like, yeah, he said, I saw that you were very, you had, the academic expertise, and you liked science, and he had a website for students to go on, and then he realized that I was the only one that was using the website to advance my knowledge, and he said, Jermoh, you're the only one that that did that, and I was like, what? Because I'm thinking that the whole class did that, but he was like, no. And so I saw something in you, and I also had I wanted to be a medical doctor, but not knowing that after I did that program, I decided, well, I still want to be in the health field, but I don't like blood. I cannot even stand my own blood. And then also it was just as a teenager too, when we went to UMass, I realized that do I really want to be in a confined area where you have to see patients and you're not doing anything. But then so I limited myself a little bit, but I didn't limit myself a lot because I can still do the future is still advanced for me. And I realized that that probably wasn't the best track for me, but I still love the health field, and I love policy, and I love working with communities, and I love research. I love teaching as well, because it's so find a blend of all of that. Definitely was something that I pushed towards, and even getting my master's degree, some of the work that I did too to help me with that. Yeah, and then being on a school committee too is I'm going to be involved with policies for health-based policies. So yeah, it all kind of intertwines.
That's awesome.
Mr. D was at South?
Yeah.
All right.
And he's still there. And there's other teachers too, like my history teacher, Mr. Koforio, he's still there too. And he teaches in, besides just teaching, but he teaches the community service learning program. My ninth grade teachers were amazing. English teachers were amazing, but there's just some, man. You just have to pray for them.
Those teachers of which we can say nothing, we must pass over in silence. The final question, I think we've covered some of this, but what's your experience with education policy, and what in your life has helped you understand how your decisions would affect our 25,000 students?
You want to rephrase that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is just maybe the better way to put this question is are there any topics in education that we haven't covered that you wanted to mention that relate to this campaign?
Yes. So
maybe the answer is no. Maybe we covered everything.
We cover everything, and we cover largely the health-based part, which we don't we haven't touched deeply into that yet in Worcester.
Okay.
But something else too, like the whole professional development piece of it, and creating a track for students, and almost having the mentality of a caseworker mindset, creating a track for students that they can move from based on what they have experience in and their skills and what they're telling that they want to do. There's a lot of educational policies around that. I know organizations that I followed through the years that are creating a track for students, tracking students and helping them through the way, whether it's even just lending an ear to listen. They're there, whether if it's just helping that student in whatever they need, basically, is what I think we have to look more deeper into rather than just saying, oh yeah, well, you want to go to college X, Y, and Z, just figure it out, because it's for kids who come from underprivileged background and with parents who have not obtained education here in the U.S. It's very different. For us, I want to say, because I was a part of that pool as well. And trying to figure that on your own, it takes a long time. It's a great skill because you learn it and it helps you for other things. But sometimes too, if we can kind of provide access to information earlier on, it could cut down some kind of many barriers to allow kids to flourish and go more and farther in whatever they want to do. Yeah.
Brendan Melican, would you press the yellow button, please?
I would.
Brent crude oil is $58 a barrel, unchanged on the week and down 19% on the year. Bitcoin is $11,200, unchanged on the week and up 90% on the year. You were going to say something?
Yeah, no, I had a question, I guess, for you along the lines of, so you touched briefly upon your own experiences with racism in the public schools. And I think almost everybody involved in public school policy agrees that one of the best ways to deal with institutional racism, especially in the public schools, is to have a pool of educators who better reflect the community that they're educating. Do you have any thoughts on how a city like Worcester, because we talked a couple weeks back that I feel like it was only 10, 15 years ago, maybe it was just me talking, it was only 10, 15 years ago, we were extremely, and I think correctly, critical of the Worcester Police Department for not being as reflective of the city as it should be. Mm-hmm. But it seems like in that 15 years or so, the demographics have changed wildly in the Worcester Police Department. But I still haven't seen, and I still don't see a lot of people, other than just mentioning it like I'm doing now. It seems like the fire department and public education are the two places that are sorely lacking in terms of even being remotely diverse, never mind actually reflective of the city as a whole. Do you have any thoughts on how we improve upon that?
Definitely. And that is a part of my platform as well. A key point in my platform is to, because I was a part of the Worcester Future Teachers program it's still going on at Worcester State University. And the mission is basically to educate kids as early as 9th grade, where, you can take courses at Worcester State. And by the time you're out of high school, then you have a 2-year degree or 2-year worth of courses at a state institution. And they also provide scholarships for kids to go into in the teaching field. Huh. There's also another piece of it, and there's a pipeline that once the student graduates from Worcester State, then they'll automatically have opportunity for a position in the public schools.
Wow.
That track, although needs more focus and it needs more focus and better ways to recruit students, because the recruitment process is lacking. Mm-hmm. And we cannot say that they're not, bright and educated students of color, because there are. So one thing that I have realized through my little research that I'm doing is that the recruitment process is lacking.
Yeah.
Because the program has been a part of the city or with the schools for so many years, but when I was a part of it, I didn't really know all that.
Yeah, it's the first that I've heard of it, and I've been here for 43.
So we definitely need to, and this is something that I was saying, access to information, right? Right. We need to, be, and that's one of the things on my platform that I'm going to push for, let kids know in the schools that this is an avenue. Yeah. Rather than just assuming, if we can provide the means for students to be on that track, to already start, doing lesson plan development or teaching. That is a better way, and providing the means, the funding for them to achieve that is a better way to create a pipeline. And the more so giving them jobs, once they're done, they can come back into the system. Because if we had done that when I was in high school, and I have a master's. I'm 26 years old now. Mm-hmm. Let me just blur that little second word out. Right? We would have educators.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You have it doesn't. I mean, I think when we're looking forward, 15 years ago, when we were talking about, again, correctly, that the Worcester Police Department wasn't reflective of the city. It's the time frame that you imagine that taking to fix that, it seems like forever. Yeah. But here, again, 10, 15 years go by, and the demographics have changed a while. That's not a lot of time. I mean, that's a blink of an eye in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
I can see how creating a generation of teachers that better reflects the city's demographics. That could take a little bit more time, but only because of the education requirements necessary, right? If you need to have a master's degree now. But I mean,
Yes,
the
and you
easy
need to
one,
have the certification.
certification.
But actually, not only that, not just a master's degree, you can have a bachelor's.
and get on a provisional cert.
Yeah. And with the teacher's licensure, they give you 5 years for you to obtain that licensure.
Sure.
And in the meantime, you can be teaching. So there's already a pipeline of teachers, diverse teachers,
Right.
that are professionals or even substitutes. That if they want to come into the public schools, that there could be a mechanism to bring them, to integrate them.
No question. I guess it just goes back. The only reason I'm kind of hedging on that one is it goes back to one of your first thoughts, pointing out that we only have 30% of the population of Worcester has any higher education degree. So we're already starting with a relatively small pool to begin with. That's what, all I was going to say was, in my head, it's especially when it comes to creating generational wealth.
Yes.
Police was the right, but the fire department is another one as well too. Like, it blows my mind that every year, every junior in the Worcester Public Schools isn't brought together in a forum to explain that, hey, there's a $70,000 a year job waiting for you, and all you have to do is show up and take this test in March.
Yes,
That's
yes,
it. Like,
yes,
you have
yes,
a high
yes.
school education, and you take a test, and it's, I mean, my grandfather was a firefighter in Worcester, and it was like that opportunity for an uneducated Irish guy at the time is what turned the corner for my family, post World War II, right? It's what allowed them to put 3 kids to college. It's what allowed all of that generation to put my generation through college and whatnot. And it was just the opportunity of someone saying, hey, you have nothing else going on.
Yeah.
You should go be a firefighter.
Yeah.
And I guess that goes back to what I was saying earlier too about, not everything always needing to be preparation for higher education.
Yeah.
There are folks that for whom higher education might not actually be right now. But there are still so many other opportunities here in the city that I think a lot of people have no idea that exist, especially if you just got here.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, if you just showed up literally yesterday, like and
And if
no
you don't
one's
have
saying,
somebody who already knows the system,
exactly,
you are
like,
done.
But how much time would it take, again,
Yes.
bringing all the juniors and our 4 high schools, 5 high schools, whatever, is it 4 or 5? 4.
Might
5.
be 6.
Six.
Might be 6. Together, just to say, hey, look, like, you're going to college, great, whatever, you got plans, just want to let you know there's a test, and all you got to do is show up and take it, and there's a $70,000 a year job waiting for you. But
That we need to research more and not only just research, but bring other ways, like recruitment methods. For example,
mentioned recruitment. That's the reason
if there was a
yeah.
large career fair going on
Yeah.
of different professionals in the field for high school students right out. And something that I think that we should we should basically create an opportunity for that is much like the real world for kids in school, in the school.
Yeah.
So if they're in high school, so let's say if they want to go through the higher ed path, we need to make it as real as possible in high school.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to go through the vocational skills and other workforce development, we need to create that avenue for them right then. We should not wait for the real world to grab hold of them and then suppress them, and then now you have mental health, because stress does a whole lot to mental health. We shouldn't wait for that. I think that we need to invest. We need to do more on that. And another fascinating thing, a story that just came to my mind was at one of the Newton Square concert, and a certain principal said to me, please come and visit us, because we don't get a lot of people from the school committee coming to visit us. And it will be great, because I had told him that I went to East Middle and I was trying to meet the new principal.
There are no
they have
voters there.
Yeah.
They're all kids.
Yeah. And he said, please come and visit us.
Yeah.
And I was startled when he said that we don't get a lot of visitors from the school committee, but then people have a lot to say about the schools. And I was like,
Yeah.
all right, I need to, So just, if you don't have if you're not going to the schools, you don't have a reality.
Oh, totally. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just wrapping up. I've got one son. He's just wrapping up his time in public school now. And it's, again, I'm very comfortable saying that even when there were challenges, they were challenges that were easily conquered because of, a lifelong fundamental understanding of how that system works. Because my parents were educators. Like, I had that luxury of being able to take that for granted. But it is a nightmare. Like, the few times that I would actually have to try and call, like, the superintendent's office to get information or for something that I couldn't find on my own, it was insane just how little it's almost like it's an expectation that we don't communicate with parents. Like, we don't talk to you. Like, that's not what we do. And it was just bizarre that side of the relationship. And I can only imagine if you were starting from square one, trying to do the right thing and figure out like what needs to happen with your kids. Like, finding that point of contact would be nearly impossible. Like, I on the school level, it's very different. Like, you do have, but even there, depending on the size of the school, some of our elementary schools, they're tiny little entities that are like little neighborhood schools. We have other elementary schools, they're enormous. And, you still have the same number of administrators who are overseeing that many students and that many parents. It's easy to get drowned out and easy to be ignored when you actually need help just navigating. And we don't do a great job of that.
And I was just reading a paper that said that the school committee members, each person on the committee, possess such power to do so much that could change an entire school district. And I just want to be a part of that, that group that can utilize that power and that potential to do more. Like, and that comes back to my slogan, doing whatever it takes. If I have to go sit down in a class because because we want to figure out I have a story. So this is another story that I have. Like ESL, for example, like when I came to from Liberia, I had a Liberian accent because my country, we're an English-based speaking country, but of course the American accent is a little bit different. So my father said,
incorrect is what it is. It's a little bit more incorrect. That's
And my dad said, no, you're not going into an ESL class, because his mentality of it was just different from what it actually, what it is. But then I've also heard, some other, students that was in the program that said they didn't learn anything being put in the ESL class. So and this is, where school committee members have such power, because you have the power to go into schools and see what is actually going on, and sitting down in a few classes to evaluate, and just observing.
Right.
And then, devising ways to help, because if you're not there, if you don't know, I like to know everything. I like to know everything to the T. Whatever, if there's a question mark, I want to know why there's a question mark. So, and that helps me, and it also helps even policy makers develop better, platforms or policies that actually affect people, rather than just sitting, and just devising things based on, research, because sometimes research too is not 100%.
Well, the data needs to be correct. We're seeing that now in this city with our conversation about discipline in the schools. We don't seem to have the ability to agree to the terms that we're trying to define in the first place, which is the thing that's holding up whether or not our local versus state data is correct in terms of discipline rates. That's one of our problems here very much, is agreeing to the terms that we're discussing so that we can all agree what the data actually tells us and then act upon that.
Brendan, I'm going to interrupt you because we're running short on time, and I want to ask you the question. I want to ask you the question that everybody is wondering, which is, how much can you bench?
Don't put me on the spot. I can bench when I was working out a lot.
Yeah, I mean this, and so generally the answer we're looking for is lifetime record.
Oh my God!
So what was like the when you were working out a lot?
40, because I have weak upper body strength, but I have fantastic lower body. I can squat I was 200 pounds. I was more than that, and it also deadlifts. My game was sharp.
Nice.
Squats are where it's at, Mike.
Nice. Do you feel squats are more relevant than benching?
You can skip chest day. You can't skip leg day.
No, yeah.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for being on the show. This was cool. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you so
much.
Thank you very much.
At long last. That's all for this episode.
That's all we got.
Well, we'll see you next time. And remember, you can bench more than you think you can.
Yes.
All right. I think that's the end of the show.